Most people don't know where to start when they're looking to buy a home. They know that they're supposed to talk to a realtor and that they're supposed to talk to a lender, but nobody gives them the steps. And that's what I'm going to focus on today is here's how you know that you're going to this lender and talking to this realtor, and you can understand that both of them are educated and both of them are able to give you the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision to be able to buy your next real estate property, your first or your next real estate property. I go by Ian of Austin everywhere on the internet. I'm happy to walk you through this. I actually had a friend slash client who was asking me about this today, and I was like, well, I'm going to record this and send it out because everybody should I feel like everybody should do it this way or this type of way. And each realtor might have a different process, but at the end of the day, you just want to know, what's my monthly payment, right? Like, how much do I have to pay to get this house? And you look at all these different websites, everybody has different information. So I'm going to try to break it down and make it super easy for you and explain why along the way. So let me make my screen a little bit smaller. So you'll notice I have a spreadsheet up on this side, and then on the other side, I have a couple websites. So I want to talk a little bit about the websites. Most people, when they're looking, they do it backwards. What they'll do is they'll look on Zillow and they'll see houses. So what I want to say is that the first thing I did was figure out a price point, arbitrary price point. So I figured out I'm going to look for a place because I'm in Austin, Texas area. So 500,000 price point is a good price point here today in Austin, Texas. But you take whatever that median number is in your area or average number is in your area and do this same exercise. So you adjust the numbers based on your area. And then what I want to do is make sure that we find 3 different homes. Why 3 different homes? You'll see why as we're going through this, but because the numbers change based on the home you're looking at and based on the area of the home. Your taxes might be different. Your insurance might be different. And so those things, if you don't account for them, you're going to a mortgage lender without all of the information. And when I say mortgage lender, I'm talking a bank, a credit union, a private mortgage lender. You can go to a seller and say, hey, I want to buy this house from you directly and get your attorney involved. And then they'll come up with a number and you pay the interest rate to them. Or you could just talk to your realtor and you can say, hey, I need a lender. And they'll say, I got you. There's 1,000 people I know. You can go to Quicken Loans. You can go to all these places. At the end of the day, you just need someone who's going to lend you the money so that you can buy this house. And that's why you come with this, because this gives you the numbers that you bring to them, and then they return the numbers and the information, and it's data for data. It's not this subjective thing where you're guessing and they're like, oh, well, we can make sure that you get into a house for about this much. It's like, no, don't give me that. I just show me the numbers, man. And so it removes a lot of the confusion. Okay, so I chose 3 different addresses and I'm going to show you why. So when you're looking on, let's say Zillow.com, which a lot of people do, the only difference between some of these websites is how they look to you. So on Zillow.com, it looks like this. It shows the houses on the right. And these are the houses that are a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $500,000 in the Austin, Texas area. So when I say Austin, it could also mean North Austin, Pflugerville, Round Rock, South Austin, Manchac, Del Valley, Manor. Like there's all these different places. And so wherever you are in the United States, or I guess in the world, right? Each area has different suburbs or like sub areas. And so you want to be very cognizant of that. When you just say, hey, I want to buy a house in Austin, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Right? And same thing if you're talking to, so like, let's say you want to buy a house in the Chicagoland area, and I live in Austin. I know realtors in Chicago, but we got to make sure that they're not in, Gurnee area or Waukegan or on the south side of Chicago or Naperville. So whenever you're looking for a realtor and you need me to share that with you, let me know whereabouts. What city do you actually want to move into? And I can connect you with somebody there all across the United States, but that's a little tangential. Okay, so let's go back to look at this. So this is on Zillow. I did the same thing on Realtor.com, and I just wanted to kind of show you how it looks. So on Realtor.com, it breaks it up, and it's kind of the same stuff. There's a couple that are a little different. Oh, so I said Realtor, but I meant this is actually Redfin. You'll see a little R because basically they have this as an exclusive listing that you're finding on their site. If you have a realtor that you're working with, they have their own website. And so for the remainder of this, I'm going to show my website and share the properties there. But also, realtors have a lot deeper information. And we have something called the MLS. And so when we're using the MLS, we're privy to way more than most of these sites are willing to divulge to you. And so when you say, well, why would I use a realtor? Reason number one is that we can tell you what the tax rate of an area is, and then what type of financing they're willing to accept, and a lot of other things that aren't on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com. Okay. All right. So like I said, I'm going to use my website, ianofAustin.com, and there's a particular reason why. It's because it has a calculator. Now, the lender is the person that's going to give you the money. They're going to do the calculations. This just gets you in the ballpark. So if you have to pull up a calculator to come up with some information like tax rate, then you can figure out, like, you can kind of estimate what the property taxes are with just a normal calculator. You take the sales price, you multiply it by the property tax rate, and that's what gets you your annual property taxes. But if we come across that, we'll deal with it when we do. Okay, so back to the website. So I've got 3 addresses. So the first one is going to be this one here. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go into this search on my website, and I'm going to say, okay, what do I need from here? So I'm pulling up this price, and I'm focusing on the list price for these homes. Okay, so I'm focusing on the list price. So the list price is $500,000. Okay, I have a price 1, 2, and 3 because I might want to offer something else. Just because it's listed at $500,000 doesn't mean I want to offer that. I might want to offer $475,000. Okay, I might need to offer $525,000 because there's multiple offers already. And in order to beat the next person, I might have to go higher. So it's good for you to do the numbers based on what those will be as well. But for the sake of this, I'm going to stay right at the list price, and then I can, use a calculator to adjust up or down, or talk to my lender later if I have a house that I really like. Okay. So, and again, the whole point of this is so you go to the lender and they're giving you the information objectively that tells you what numbers that you're starting at. Okay, so that's my list price. What's my down payment? Well, that's going to be up to you. Oftentimes, it's going to be around 5%, like minimally 5% of what the list price is. Okay, so if you're going to do 5%, we're talking, you're not going to do, you might do 25,000. Okay, so let's say the down payment is 25,000. Okay, and you can plus or minus that. Like sometimes, like you see in this particular house, it says $9,000 buyer credit. Do you know what that applies to? It can apply to closing costs. It can apply to the sales price. It can apply to 100 things. So don't worry about that. Just know how much money you have in the bank. That's going to be your down payment and something called closing costs, which I didn't actually put on here. Nobody tells you about this. Nobody tells you about the closing costs. Okay, so if you're putting $25,000 down, you don't know what the closing costs are going to be for this house yet. They might be 3% of this price. It depends on what state you're in. It depends on what time of year you close. It depends on if they've even paid their property taxes for the year. There's a lot of stuff in there. Okay, let's just do a static number because it shouldn't be much more than, I'm going to use 10,000 at the most. Okay, again, the whole point of this is so you have a static number so that you can compare the monthly payment. This does not mean you're going to be paying $10,000 in closing costs. In fact, like if you were to buy a brand new construction home, they might say, well, if you give us a $25,000 down payment, we'll pay your closing costs. Or like in this house, a $9,000 buyer credit, that might cover the closing costs. Okay, so don't get caught up on these numbers up top. You're just trying to get to this number at the bottom. What is the monthly payment that this lender is going to charge me? And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, like, so let's say this mortgage lender is Real Mortgage, which is a lender that I can help with. There might be 100 lenders that you can go to. So the next one might be Chase Bank. The other one might be Rocket Mortgage. The other one might be somebody else. It doesn't really matter. You're going to do this with 3 different lenders on the same day. The reason why you're doing it on the same day is because interest rate changes every day. So let's say today, the interest rate is 6%. In theory, if you did it today, each lender, each property should have the same interest rate. In theory. You might give it to Real Mortgage and they say it's 6%. You might give it to Chase Bank or Wells Fargo and they might say it's 7.5%. You see what I mean? So this is why you want to give this sheet to all of the lenders on the same day so they can give you objective numbers. You're not sending it to them. You're sending it to them individually. You say, hey, Chase, I've got a sheet. I figured out a couple houses that I'm interested in. Can you help me fill out these numbers? What are the property taxes? Or I've got the property taxes, HOA, and all this information. Can you tell me what the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance and any other fees are to give us our monthly payment? Okay, so property taxes on this house, I've got it up on the MLS, so I'm going to pull this up. This estimated property tax is probably closer to this. I'll say $5,000, between $5,000 and $6,000 based on the tax rate. So I'm going to go with $5,500 just to split the difference. And you're going to have to talk to your realtor in your area about that. But $5,500 a year. So that gets divided by 12, and that goes into your monthly taxes. Okay. So your HOA on this particular house is 0. There is no HOA. So if you're in the suburbs, there's a high probability you have an HOA. If you're in the city, you might have no HOA. Homeowners insurance, we don't know off of this, but it could be like $1,500 a month. So what determines the homeowner's insurance is a few things. One, like your credit rating and all that sort of stuff, but also how old is the roof? That's probably the biggest impact on this house. And this is why we're getting 3 different houses, right? So you might need to call your insurance guy and say, hey, I'm looking at these 3 houses. Can you tell me what an annual home insurance policy would be for this? And they'll say, oh, this roof looks like it might need to be replaced. So I'm sorry, but if you bought this house and they didn't replace the roof, your homeowner's insurance might actually be $2,100 a month. And you're like, oh, that sucks. So now when I submit an offer, I already know I'm going to ask them to replace the roof, so my insurance goes down. But that's after you already have the loan, have an understanding of what the loan will look like. But this gives you an insight onto where those prices come into play. All right, so I've got some numbers in here, and I have on my website, and most realtors have this on their website. Actually, I don't know that most realtors have this on their website. I have it on my website. So you go to ianofAustin.com. I'll actually just go straight to ianofAustin.com, and then you scroll down. And so on my website, I have an affordability calculator. So it asks you things like, what's your annual income? Because when you're talking to a bank, they're going to need that in order to provide you a good estimate. So they're going to start digging into your stuff, right? Do you own another house? Do you have any school debt? Do you have cars? All that sort of stuff. But let's say you have no debt and all you're trying to do is buy, like most people have debt, right? But let's say you have no debt and all you're trying to do is buy this house. You have the perfect credit rating and you've worked at your job for 3 years and you're a W-2 employee for the sake of this. Okay. So let's say your income is $75,000. Your down payment, we said $25,000. So that's good. We don't know closing costs, other monthly debt. Let's just say $0. Loan term. So this is kind of important. Most people choose a 30-year loan. It's a low probability you'll live in the house for 30 years. So, but it's still what the loan is scheduled for. If you sell it in 7 years, you're not still paying on the loan. You're selling that with it, right? So don't get caught up on the 30 years. Most people buy and sell every 5 to 7 years. It's just normal. But the loan type is scheduled for a 30-year loan. You can do a 15-year loan, but your monthly payment is going to be much higher. And listen, I'm not a loan officer or a mortgage professional. I'm just kind of giving you high level so that we can get this over to a lender so that they can give you realistic numbers. Okay. So I'm going to leave it at 30-year fixed. Imagine 40-year will drop your monthly payment even lower. So interest rate. So right now, let's say it's a 6% interest rate. Okay. Again, it depends on what it is, and the lender will tell you what their interest rate is. All right. So you don't just assume. And then if you look over here, there's this little thing that says advanced. So I can say, what's the property tax rate? So for this particular house, I think the property tax rate was 1.9. Homeowners insurance, I upped it to $1,500 a month, right? So if I go into here, let's say it's 1,500 times 12, and that gives us $18,000 a year. So if I go back to this website, so this is a year. I mean, that doesn't sound right. I'm going to go with 1,800. I'm going to go with 1,800 a year, and then it's divided by 12. I don't know why I said 18,000. I was doing the math backwards. Okay, so 1,800 a year for your homeowner's insurance, and then your HOA fees. This one has 0. There we go. And again, so homeowner's insurance, you're going to check with your insurance provider. The lender is going to tell you what the interest rate is. the realtor can tell you what the property tax rate is. But if you're an open state, so like Texas is a non-disclosure state, but you can find out what anyone's property tax rate is. You just have to go and do all the homework. Or you can just text your realtor and be like, hey, I want to know the property tax rate for these 3 addresses. And they should know that. And if they don't know it, well, now you know. All right, so property tax rate, 1.9, no HOA, and here we are. So I'm going to hit calculate, and it gives me this number at $288 a month, and it breaks it down for me. This is all I'm trying to get from the lender. Okay, I'm going to put this in the third. I'm going to put it Ian of Austin website, and I'm going to say interest rate 6%, and I'm going to say property taxes. What did we say? It actually didn't put what the property taxes were. It asked for the rate. Okay, so we said 5,500. Okay, HOA 0. All right, and we're going to assume it's the same property. And then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say principal. It shows me this. Principal and interest. They don't break it up. It's kind of funny. Kind of funny. So this is where the lender can actually break it up for you. It changes every single payment. You just want to know what's my typical principal and interest. They'll probably, I don't know if they'll put it together or what for you, but for here I'll do 1581, and we'll call that principal and interest, and I'll just do this so it's not there. Taxes are 457, and then insurance is 150 a month. Okay, no other things that we know of. I'm going to move this over so it calculates it, and that gives me 2188. So you just want the lender to give you these numbers for all 3 of these properties. All right, so the next property here, we're at Sarah. I'm going to come up here, search. All right, I don't know why Sarah Drive didn't come up. All right, I'm going to go back to Matrix, which is our MLS, and I'm going to pull Sarah Drive this way. Oh, it's probably because I have Drive spelled out or something silly. So you just have to put Sarah DR. It doesn't matter. Okay, MLS. So this one has a pool. It's nice. Different property tax rate. So the property tax rate is 17,650. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to say estimated tax 7406. So Sarah Drive. List price 500. Down payment 25. I'm going to do down payment, list price, and closing costs and interest rate are all the same. There we go. It didn't get closing costs. Closing costs are the same. I'm actually up 1. Oh, that's what I did. All right, so I'm going to do these, move these down. Can I move it down? Yeah, there we go. All right, so down payment is $25,000 for every house. Closing costs are $10,000 for every house, and the list price is $500,000 for every house. Interest rate is 6% for every house, according to this particular lender. Right? We got to get that number from them. I'm not going to give this. They have to provide this number. In fact, I'm going to turn this yellow here. All right. We know our property taxes for that house. The property taxes for this house are 7406. Property taxes in Texas are typically higher because we are a no income tax state, kind of like Florida and a couple other places. And so they get you in the property taxes. And so ours are, and this is a low property tax, 1.7. We see property taxes that are like 3.1, and in Houston, it goes up to like 4% pretty easily. So there's also no HOA here. And then home insurance, this looks like a newer roof. And so I'm just going to assume, again, you talk to your insurance provider here. So I'll make this yellow too because these are shoppable. So your insurance provider, let's say they charge you, because it's a new roof, they charge you $1,100 a year. Great. All right, 30-year fixed, and then they'll break down the numbers for you. So this is off of the Ian calculator, the Ian of Austin calculator, but you want the lenders to fill this out for all 3 of the properties. Okay, and so the last one is Wind Valley Way, and all I'm trying to figure out are these few things. Wind Valley. And these are active homes, by the way, right? So I'm looking at what homes are active on the market that I might consider. But again, the key is to look at the same price because everything's the same across the board. And this will give us a very clear indication of how the prices change per property. Okay, so right here, we're looking at $2,400. See that property tax rate? And so the estimated tax is $83,400. 441. Wonderful. HOA is 105 a month. Ooh. So let's do probably the annual price. It seems like everything's going in there, and so I'll just do the 105 times, what did I say? Here we go. Let's do 1260. I would do 1300 just to be safe, because it could go up, or there might be a charge or a late fee or something. Okay, so 1300 a year. That's good to know. And then homeowners insurance. So if we look at this particular property, how old do we think the roof is? It's a 2-story home. So when you talk to your insurance provider, they'll say, oh, it's a little more or a little less because of X, Y, and Z. They might charge more or less because it's a 2-story home. They might charge more or less because of the types of floors and the finishes and all that. But without seeing it at first glance, they should be able to give you a quick number and just say, hey, it's a 2-story, it's this many beds and baths, and it looks like the roof was replaced 3 years ago. So they might come back with an arbitrary, I'm saying this arbitrarily, let's say it's $1,350 a year. Great. Okay, so now we've got some real numbers for all three of these. And so now you want to go through and figure out your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance for each one of these properties based on this information. Okay? And so while we're sitting here, I guess I'll go ahead and do that for these other two properties. Okay, so 24,420. And then when I go to ianofAustin.com, and I go back to my calculator right here. Okay, so those are going to stay the same. No monthly debt, interest rate 6, advanced. I'm going to do, see the property tax rate. So let's say it's 2.4420. Insurance. So which property are you looking at? Wind Valley Way. So insurance, let's say 1350, and HOA was 105. And here we go. 25,000 down, 30-year fixed, 6%, 2.4. Oh, okay. Well, first off, it adjusts. You see the principal and interest are less. So you're actually paying less in principal and interest and more in property taxes, and then more in HOA. It's funny that the number is the exact same as this property. So your monthly payment for this house is the same as this house, except more of it's going to taxes and insurance and HOA than is going to your principal. That's enlightening, isn't it? That's kind of fun. But you can also show, it says, based on this annual income, you can afford a home up to $263,000. This is something that the lenders play with when it comes to what your debt looks like. And so I'm going to change this number here. So 6% property tax rate for this house, Sarah Drive. I just wanted to see what that is real quick to see what that number looks like. I'm not going to type it in. I just want to go back to it. So I go to Sarah Drive. I click on it, and the property tax rate is 1.7560. So I'll copy that. 1.7560. Great. Homeowners insurance for Sarah Drive, we said $1,100, and HOA is 0. And we go to calculate. Okay, so it's adjusting this number here, but keeping our monthly payment the same. So we have principal and interest, $1,600, property tax, $441, and homeowners insurance is $92 a month. So it's keeping our same monthly payment because that's what most people want to do, but it's showing you can get a home that's worth $301,000 if you want that monthly payment. So if you want to increase this monthly payment, then here we go. So if I'm willing to pay $2,750 a month, then I can go up to $376,000 house. So again, different for your area. The point is to get the lenders to fill out the information here, right here, so that you can now decide based on like what that monthly payment is and what it's going to, and you're seeing 3 numbers for 3 different houses. Hopefully that made a lot of sense. I know I was a little all over the place. That's kind of how I do. But at the end of the day, you just want to know, hey, lender, you want to go to 3 different lenders and you want to give them this sheet and say, here are houses that I found. Here's the information that I could get. I need you to confirm the interest rate and the homeowner's insurance for each house. And then based on that, what's my principal, interest, and taxes and insurance? And that will give me my monthly payment for this house. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot.